Alright, take 47. Okay, maybe 46. Anyways, Vscripting tutorial. I'm not going to do anything really complicated. I'm just do a quick substitute for the input-output system in Hammer. So instead of using like I don't know, on trigger, func tank, pick or set target X, I'm going to use scripting to do that for me, which doesn't really make any sense. But when you have more complex functions and requirements to choose those outputs, this makes it a lot easier than going through a whole bunch of entities in Hammer that may or may not work or break in the next update. Not saying Vscripting is not going to break in the next update, or what you do is not going to break, but it lets you do a little more things a little more closer to the engine. A little closer to the engine. Think of it as the, how is it described? Scripting is a way of letting level designers touch the engine without screwing it up. Yeah. So, with that odd quote, badly paraphrased quote, I'm going to start this tutorial off. So, Vscript tutorial. I've already taken the liberty to add 2 more entities than normal. I have a prop button and an in Vsprite called sprite. So go ahead and pause the video here, add all you need to, set things up, and now I'm going to get into it. So normally when you want to connect these two, you go to outputs, you add an output. So on pressed, sprite, show sprite. And then if you can do on button reset, sprite, hide sprite. And that would do. You compile the map, you hit it, you press the button, turns it on, then button resets, it turns it off. Pretty simple. And kind of limiting, because you're stuck inside Hammer's I/O system. Now, don't get me wrong, as you've seen in my previous maps, Hammer's I/O system is pretty robust. But there are limitations to it. You can't, say, have varying conditions, like I don't want to say filter names and such, but you can't do complex equations and whatnot, mathematical equations and functions to determine what to do. You can't, program using the I/O system very well. It can be done, but you don't have variables and whatnot, or if you want variables, you have to use a lot of branches or something, and that can really clog up your map and be very unelegant to look at and manipulate in Hammer. So using scripting will kind of offload that complexity. Yeah, more or less. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and just create a new text file in whatever your favorite text editor is. Vim, Notepad, Notepad++, Word. I wouldn't recommend Word. This, I don't know if the metadata would get shoved in or not. So just create a new one, call it testscript.nut, and save it in your Vscripts folder. And just so you see where that is, actually it's on the top right here. In your Steam Apps Common, Portal 2, Scripts, Vscripts folder. I'm just going to save it down here in the Vscripts folder itself. Not going to create a subdirectory, not like that, and save it. Now, we're going to create a function. And it's just a chunk of commands that can be executed independently from the rest of the file. So you get multiple functions in a file, and it's not going to just run through every single command in your file. It's going to just choose the section that you tell it to run. So, functions are started with the keyword function. As you can see, I have a syntax highlighter that has colored it blue. I got this from some website, one of the first 4 results of a Google search, and had to modify it to match to be more easily read on my color scheme here, which is black with white and a little gray. Otherwise it'd be black text on black background, and that's just not helpful. So, as you'll see, I have show and hide sprite already open here, so I'm going to call this function show sprite. and the parens here are important because they'll denote that it is a function, despite having the function keyword in front of it. You usually use the parens here to pass parameters like A, B, or C. Of note, if you have done programming before, you may note the lack of int A, string B, double C. In Squirrel, it's kind of like Python. It doesn't really care. The variables A, B, and C, or parameters A, B, and C, or whatever you happen to pass to them at runtime. So, just something to keep in mind. But in this case, we're not going to be using any parameters. Not necessary. Now, if you were to execute or tell the sprite to do something in the game using the console, you would be using entfire. So entfire sprite, show sprite, and there you have it. There is a script function for that entfire, and let me search for it here. Oops, entire, no, entfire. You have two entries here, entfire by handle and entfire. We want entfire. I've seen it places where entfire by handle is used, but I haven't really dissected it to figure out how it works. Now you see here it says target action value delay activator. Target value action delay and some sort of activator modifier. I don't know, but what I do know is when I tried to follow this syntax, it didn't work. So, if you go ahead and open up your Vscripts folder, which I just closed, darn. Okay, let me see here. Oh, I already have it open. Even better. There's the path for you. The video splitter script that Valve has in Portal 2 is in the video subfolder of Vscripts. Peppered throughout this, you'll find various uses of entfire. And now I've done that, it'll highlight all the instances used of entfire. What I want, though, is to look at this. So we have entfire, the name. In this case, sign name is actually a variable of type string. So there's no double quotes around it to denote string. But anyways, so we have the name, what you want it to do, the output, or actually the input, excuse me, the parameter, and the delay. Note how there's no fire once only. From my understanding, entfire, once this executes, it executes once. You don't need to specify whether or not it can continually go or not. If you want to do that, use add output. And I do not believe that is here, so you'd have to do entfire, then add output, and then do it like you would in the console. Anyways, go ahead and copy one of the entfire lines from Video Splitter, open up your test script, and paste it in. And you don't have to put a semicolon at the end, but I like to anyway. Okay, so put up hammer again, click on the sprite, and the name is called sprite. So, oops, and now hammer's going to redraw. In here, put in quotations, sprite. Double quotes, not single quotes. Okay, just then you tell it the input you want, show sprite. There is no parameter. I'm going to leave that empty. And the delay of 0 is good. That's fine. So copy that function, paste the one below, and this one's going to be hide sprite. Now, having a double quote here for no parameter may or may not be valid. Null can work just as, it may just work as well, so I'm going to have both and see if it throws an error. And if it does, you'll see what an error looks like in Squirrel. Okay? So now we have a test script.net with two functions, show sprite and hide sprite. So go back into Hammer, click on the button. And if you don't have these outputs, don't worry about it. Just create 2 new outputs, one for on button reset, one for on pressed, and follow what I'm doing here. So instead of telling the sprite to do anything, I'm going to use the script. To do that, I'm going to have the outputs point to self. Okay? Now, I'm not going to worry about changing these two, the inputs right now. I'm going to go back to class info, go to entity scripts, click on manage. Little plus sign down here, click on that. I've already navigated to my Vscripts folder, so Hammer remembers where it is this time around until I turn it off or it crashes. So navigate to your Vscripts folder and find the script you made. In my case, testscript.nut. Click on open. Okay. Go back to your outputs tab now. And the input you want to do now is called run script code. And this enables the parameter field. The parameter you want to use is the name of the function in its entirety. So show sprite is what I'm going to do. If you had parameters in it, you would pass those parameters here. So show sprite 1, 2, 3, 1 for ASDF. This is where you would put it. But since I'm not using any parameters, I'm not going to do that. Now, do the same thing for on button reset. So run script code. This time it's going to be hide sprite. Click apply and go ahead and compile your map. I'm using a default compile in expert mode, that way hijack will work next time I try and use it. If you haven't read my blog entry on this, it turns out if you use the normal compile window, the basic compile window, it starts Portal through Steam, or Portal 2 through Steam, and something about that handoff process breaks hijack. It keeps it from running or working. Of course, I haven't used it or hijack for a while, so last time was 2 weeks ago when I released the video Thaumaturgy. Or Thaumaturgy. Using Vscripts. Because I couldn't get all the logic measure movements and whatnot to separate rotational from translational data and have it work, and I couldn't set it manually. Oh boy. It was not a fun experience. Alright, so let's see here. Press it, turns on, and it turns off. Check the console, no error messages. So, take a look here. The parameter fields of empty string or null both work in this case. And as you can see, if I go ahead and turn on developer 3, press the button, and it goes there. And take a look at it, you have the button that is being used. Okay, so button not used. The prop button tells itself to run a script code called show sprite. And it receives that. And out of nowhere, the sprite receives a command to show itself. So that's what it does. And you go to the output, the button resets, so now it's hiding the sprite. So the button receives its command to itself to hide the sprite, and the script executes, and now the sprite is given the input, hide yourself. So, not a terribly complex program. That's what it is. Nothing too hard. What time am I at? 14 minutes. So, this is just a quick and basic intro. You can do other things with it. You can push stuff to the console. You can print lines. So, I'm going to add a little more. So, if you want to print something to the console, use this command called print L. Short for print line. And you can give it a string. So, show ring sprite. Go down here. Hiding sprite. Okay, now if I were to since this is in a separate script, I don't have to compile the map, right? The entities just pull directly from the script, so if I change the script, the entities will automatically update at runtime, and all is good. I'm going to go ahead and press this right here. Note, it hasn't taken effect. It's not printing anything out to the console. Now, if I were to go ahead and find Vscript, you could try script reload code. And give it test script, not in my case. And it says it's replacing show sprite and hide sprite. So I would assume that then updates the code that the buttons would run. Go ahead and press it. And nothing. Didn't work. So what I'll try then, reload entity code. It didn't give me any output. Now, if I were to go into Hammer, recompile the map, aha, hijack works. And then press the button, showing sprite, hiding sprite. Right there. So you could try reloading the map, so I'm going to show you that right now. I'm going to create a variable here, actually. So I'm just going to have a count, pressed count. What this is I created a variable called press count, and using this arrow means that if it doesn't already exist, make it exist in memory. Look up programming if you want to know why this is the case. Make sure the press count exists instead of trying to assign it to nothing. Make it 0. So here, press count plus plus. Plus plus is pretty much means pressed count equals pressed count plus 1. That's pretty much what that is. You can also do, if you want to use more advanced syntax, plus equals 1. These are kind of equivalent. There's also that. It's all plus plus at the beginning and changes when the incrementation happens. So, anyways, press count there. So, go ahead and print line, pressed count. Notice I'm not putting it in quotation marks. This is not a string, it's the name of a variable inside the script. So, I'm going ahead and reload the map and see if this takes root. I'm just making changes to show you what does and doesn't work to reload it. I reloaded the map, and there we go. I've pressed the button 1 time. Press it again. 2 times. Yep. Now, you could say, oh, well, I'll make a local variable. And a local variable, this is all about scope. So up here, pressed count, its scope is the entire script. Local, this scope is within the function. And I'm going to do some bad programming here, if I haven't said bad programming already. So local presses equals 0. So local variable presses is equal to 0. Okay? So I'll go ahead and increment that down here. Oop, not shift home, just home. Okay, that makes sense. You go down here, and then I'll just copy this, go out print, presses. Now, if I were to reload the map, let's see if... Okay, and press the button. Aha! And the red text right up there. So this is what an error in Squirrel looks like. Index presses does not exist. It tells you the function, hide sprite. But this is actually new. It didn't used to tell me the function. It would just say, oh my gosh, there's an error! Go find it! So, now it's saying hide sprite, tells you the script, and the line. Since that line number's on the side here, it's not a big problem. See how presses is being called down here. But this is a local variable, so it's only valid within the function. Okay, so I'll take this and move it up here. Reload the map. And for those of you who are familiar with programming and scripting, feel free to zone out here. I am going over this for the sake of those who have no idea what's going on. Press the button, showing sprite. Yet another error. Save. Always important to save. Now this is interesting. See, presses is only showing once, okay? So I pressed it there, 1 and 1. Alright. So, undo that. Press it again. 1 and 2. 1 and 3. I've pressed the button 3 times. So, if you look at this function and you kind of get the gist of what's going on here, local presses is always reset to 0. So it's never going to get the right value. Whereas press count, stored up here with a more global scope, will always get the right count. Presses is never going to get the right count because you keep setting it to 1. So that's kind of a why you should do something like this versus something like this. Okay, so just to show you this, what happens if you set it up out here. It's an error because they can't find it. Because pretty much the scope of presses is this single line. Anything before the semicolon. Or actually this line itself, because it recognizes, well, end of line as the end of the line. Unlike, instead of white space, like Java or C++ IDEs. So you can't just do that. And if I were to say presses equal to 0 instead of open caret and hyphen, I'll show you what happens. It says the index show sprite does not exist. Because by setting presses equal to 0, outside of it, actually no, let me reload this just to cover my bases here. By setting presses equal to 0, you've pretty much said make some chunk of memory equal to 0. Kind of like that. I don't really know the specific inner workings of Squirrel or how it's implemented in source. I just know that this is not going to work because presses the space for it does not exist anywhere, so it's just kind of doing whatever it can and trying to execute the rest of the script if at all possible, in which case it is not possible. If I were to change this to that, to say, if presses exists, make it 0. If it doesn't exist, make it exist, or create it, and then set it to 0. Math, or if I reload. Press that 3 times. 1, 1, 2, 2, and 3, 3. So there you have it. And since that's kind of a redundant, I'm going to get rid of it. And, actually, you know, one more thing. You can add strings and such. Math. Okay. And you see our button pressed, showing sprite. Alright. So what if I wanted to say the number of presses already in there? I could add the variable in it. So button pressed plus pressed count space times. So I have a string button pressed colon space plus the variable pressed count plus the rest of the string. Pressed 1 times. Yeah. This is when you can use the another function to say if it is 1 time, print out time, and then after that change the variable time to times, so it'll print that out. But if you want to try that, go ahead. Try and see if you can do that. You pull up the reference manual here. And you can see we have if-else blocks. And I'm not going to get into if-elses. This is pretty much the end of the tutorial. Just wanted to show you guys this, the basic scripting. Nothing too complex. I went a little into it 14 minutes ago. So, yeah, nothing too overwhelming. So you can now do basic scripting on your own and then play with it and grow from there. If you have any questions about it, post a comment, send me a PM. If you need any help, let me know and I'll help you out as best I can if I can. So until next time.